differently. For one thing, I've been told, probably correctly, that Federal Reserve data collection, due to practical obstacles, doesn't properly take into account pension effects, including effects from 401k and similar plans. Assume some 63-year-old dentist has $1 million in GE stock in a private pension plan. The stock goes up in value to $2 million, and the dentist, feeling flush, trades in his very old Chevrolet and leases a new Cadillac at the giveaway rate now common. To me, this is an obvious large wealth effect in the dentist's spending. To many economists, using Federal Reserve data, I suspect the occasion looks like profligate dissavings by the dentist. To me, the dentist, and many others like him, seems to be spending a lot more because of a very strong pension-related wealth effect. Accordingly, I believe that the present-day wealth effect from pension plans is far from trivial and much larger than it was in the past. For another thing, the traditional thinking of economists often does not take into account implications from the idea of bezel. Let me repeat, bezel, B-E-Z-Z-L-E. The word bezel is a contraction of the word embezzle, and it was coined by Harvard economics professor John Kenneth Galbraith to stand for the increase in any period of undisclosed embezzlement. Galbraith coined the bezel word because he saw that undisclosed embezzlement per dollar has a very powerful stimulating effect on spending. After all, the embezzler spends more because he has more income, and his employer spends as before because he doesn't know any of his assets are gone. But Galbraith did not push his insight on. He was content to stop with being a stimulating gadfly, so I will now try to push Galbraith's bezel concept to the next logical level. As Keynes showed, in a native economy relying on earned income, when the seamstress sells a coat to the shoemaker for $20, the shoemaker has $20 less to spend and the seamstress has $20 more to spend. There is no Lollapalooza effect on aggregate spending, but when the government prints another $20 bill and uses it to buy a pair of shoes, the shoemaker has another $20 and no one feels poorer. And when the shoemaker next buys a coat, the process goes on, not to an infinite increase, but with what is now called the Keynesian multiplier effect, a sort of Lollapalooza effect on spending. Similarly, an undisclosed embezzlement has stronger stimulative effects per dollar on spending than a same-sized honest exchange of goods. Galbraith, being Scottish, liked the bleakness of life demonstrated by his insight. After all, the Scottish enthusiastically accepted the idea of preordained, unfixable infant damnation. But the rest of us don't like Galbraith's insight. Nevertheless, we have to recognize that Galbraith was roughly right. No doubt, Galbraith saw the Keynesian multiplier-type economic effects promised by increases in bezel, but he stopped there. After all, bezel could not grow very big because the discovery of massive theft was nearly inevitable and sure to have reverse effects in due course. Thus, the increase in private bezel could not drive economies up, and on, at least for a considerable time, like government spending. Deterred by the apparent smallness of economic effects from his insight, Galbraith did not ask the next logical question. Are there important functional equivalents of bezel that are large and not promptly self-destructive? My answer to this question is yes. I will next describe only one. I will join Galbraith in coining new words. First, bezel, to stand for the functional equivalent of bezel. Second, bebezzlement, to describe the process of creating bezel. And third, bezzlers, to describe persons engaged in bebezzlement. Then I will identify an important source of bezel right in this room. You people, I think, have created a lot of bezel through your foolish investment management practices in dealing with your large holdings of common stock. If a foundation or other investor wastes 3% of assets per year in unnecessary, non-productive investment costs in managing a strongly rising stock portfolio, it still feels richer despite the waste, while the people getting the wasted 3%, bebezzlers though they are, think they are virtuously earning income. The situation is functioning like undisclosed embezzlement without being self-limited. Indeed, the process can expand for a long while by feeding on itself. And all the while, what looks like spending from the earned income of the receivers of the wasted 3% is, in substance, spending from a disguised wealth effect from rising stock prices. This room contains many people pretty well stricken by expired years, in my generation or the one following. We tend to believe in thrift and avoiding waste as good things, a process that has worked well for us. It is paradoxical and disturbing to us that economists have long praised foolish spending as a necessary ingredient of a successful economy. Let us call foolish expenditures foolixtures. And now, you holders of old values are hearing one of your own add to the case for foolixtures, the case for bebezzlements, the functional equivalent of embezzlements. This may not seem like a nice way to start a new day. Please be assured that I don't like bebezzlements. It is just that I think bebezzlements are widespread and have powerful economic effects. And I also think that one should recognize reality even when one doesn't like it. Indeed, especially when one doesn't like it. Also, I think one should cheerfully endure paradox that one can't remove by good thinking. Even in pure mathematics, they can't remove all paradoxes. And the rest of us should also recognize we are going to have to endure a lot of paradox, like it or not. Let me also take this occasion to state that my previous notion of 3% of assets per annum in waste in much of institutional investment management related to stocks is quite likely too low in a great many cases. A friend, after my talk to Foundation financial officers, sent me a summary of a study about mutual fund investors. The study concluded that the typical mutual fund investor gained at 7.25% per year in a 15-year period, when the average stock fund gained at 12.8% per year, presumably after expenses. Thus, the real performance lag for investors was over 5% of assets per year, in addition to whatever percentage per year the mutual funds, after expenses, lagged behind stock market averages. If this mutual fund study is roughly right, it raises huge questions about foundation wisdom in changing investment managers all the time, as mutual fund investors do. If the extra lag reported in the mutual fund study exists, it is probably caused in considerable measure by folly and the constant removal of assets from lagging portfolio managers being forced to liquidate stock holdings, followed by the placement of removed assets with new investment managers that have high-pressure, asset-gaining hoses in their mouths, and clients whose investment results will not be improved by the super-rapid injection of new funds. I am always having trouble like that caused by this new mutual fund study. I describe something realistically that looks so awful that my description is disregarded as extreme satire instead of reality. Next, new reality tops the horror of my disbelieved description by some large amount. No wonder Munger notions of reality are not widely welcome. This may be my last talk to charitable foundations. Now, toss in with embezzlement in investment management about $750 billion in floating, ever-growing, ever-renewing wealth from employee stock options, and you get a lot more common stock-related wealth effect driving consumption, with some of the wealth effect from employee stock options being, in substance, embezzle effect, facilitated by the corrupt accounting practice now required by standard practice. Next, consider that each 100-point advance in the S&P adds about $1 trillion in stock market value, and throw in some sort of Keynesian-type multiplier effect related to all embezzlement. The related macroeconomic wealth effects, I believe, become much larger than is conventionally supposed, and aggregate wealth effect from stock prices can get very large indeed. It is an unfortunate fact that great and foolish excess can come into prices of common stocks in the aggregate. They are valued partly like bonds, based on roughly rational projections of use value in producing future cash, but they are also valued partly like Rembrandt paintings, purchased mostly because their prices have gone up so far.
Well,
this situation, combined with big wealth effects at first up and later down, can conceivably produce much mischief. Let us try to investigate this by a thought experiment. One of the big British pension funds once bought a lot of ancient art, planning to sell it 10 years